Okay, it's live.
Cool. Okay. Well, it's today, December the 18th, Build Work Group call. On the call, I've got myself, George Adams, Michael Dawson, Christian Klaus, Benjamin Coe, Richard Trott, Rod Vag. Have I missed anybody else? I think that's everyone. Yep. Cool. Okay. I guess we might as well jump straight in then. Are there any announcements before we move on to the standard agenda?
Two new Node releases today.
Yep.
Were they successful, or are they happening now?
11.5 is out, and I believe the other one was 8.14 something .1. They're both out.
Nice.
Cool. Okay.
Nice to see everything still working. It's always time to breathe a sigh of relief.
Yeah, and the new releaser today did it. Beth Griggs did her first release today, I believe. I believe it was her first release.
Awesome. Yeah, we've got a decent crew of people now stepping up to do releases. So that's great.
Yeah, I think she'd been helping out with some earlier, but this was the first time she did the whole thing by herself. So that really is great.
Might be worth reaching out to some of the releasers to be on the build team, maybe. Just an idea.
Yeah, there's certainly some value, I guess, to having releases, so covering the build side of things as well.
Yeah, if there's an interest in bandwidth, that would make sense.
In the same way, I was quite keen to try and release that, so I guess it kind of works in the same way. Cool. Okay. Any other announcements? Nope. Okay. We'll move on to issue number 1337, request for elevated permissions. I think we've gone round and round and round with this one. I think the last update was possibly that it was assigned to Rod, and that we were hoping to get an update. I don't know, Rod, whether that had happened.
Yeah, that hasn't happened, unfortunately. I was going to start documenting how we could atomize permissions. If someone else wants to start it, that's fine as well. It's just a matter of going through what it is that build people can do and do it in like small chunks, and then we can look at how we're currently grouping them into the 3 groups now, and then hopefully look at how we might be able to divide it up even finer than that, so that we can give better permission model for people that need to operate more thoroughly across it. And it also is likely to expose some weaknesses in our model, like for the fact that we do so much on the one web server, and you either have all or nothing access to it. That's a flaw. So that's on my to do, and I obviously have forgotten about getting around to it. So maybe I'll start a Google spreadsheet right now to remind me.
Cool.
The other thing I wondered that we had discussed is like maybe getting George access to at least some of the IBM platforms in release. Is that something we could entertain in parallel?
Look, I personally, I don't mind IBM people having access to IBM resources. Some of those resources are so difficult for most of us to deal with that it's good to have more IBM folks to help out with them. So I have no problem with that.
And the one extension is, George has actually helped significantly in getting up our Mac infra. So I wonder if it would make sense to make it be the IBM platforms and the Mac infra stuff. Or is that going a step too far before we figure out the rest of it?
I mean, possibly that might make sense. I feel a bit detached from the Mac infra, the new Mac infra, so having more assistance to help with those machines is probably a good thing. But we have to be conscious here that, doing this for a large company, as we've said before, it's easier because we have this chain of responsibility. so that if somebody who works for an IBM screws up our stuff, they can be held liable through their employment. So that's an easier chain of responsibility and accountability. But we have to be sure that we can be clear about those access rules and those reasons, so that when we have others saying, well, hang on, I'd like access too because I'm really good at this stuff, which a lot of people are. I mean, we've got some really good people who don't work for big companies. We have to have a clear justification, and we can't be in a situation where we're being really lax for a certain class of people, and then other people are saying, well, hang on, that's not fair, or doesn't make sense to me, or that, whatever. That's going to cause, I think, too much division, and I think it already has actually within the build group. So we need to. That's why we need to get this sorted out, so we can be much clearer with our reasoning. So
yeah, no, I agree.
Okay, so at this point, should we limit adding George just to the IBM platforms?
I think so, until we have a real problem. I'm not sure we have had a real problem with the Mac stuff yet, but I think we should have a mind to that, to expanding that,
Sure.
and having a mechanism whereby we can expand the number of people who have access to these things, and have a chain of accountability. So let's figure out a model for that.
Yeah, the only things that did happen, there were a number of times that I needed to restart the agents on the Mac OS machines, but in release. But other than that, not too much, and I don't think that's happened recently. So, okay, so I'll open an issue in the repo suggesting that we just add access to George for the IBM platforms. As long as nobody here has any objections to that, we can get feedback from the rest of the group as well before we do that.
Sounds good to me. Cool. Okay. Should we move on to find resources to support build? I assume this is partly to do with getting the Mac Minis into Nearform. Is that right, Michael?
Sorry. Okay, I was just taking notes. Which issue is that?
Can we actually skip? Can we actually skip to the Python issue so that Christian can sign off when at his earliest?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that if that's okay with everyone.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll skip to 1631, which is as Trot said, the Python issue.
And it seems like Rod had some stuff to say about this, but I mean, we just need to install Python 3 on just the linter machine or machines, if I'm not mistaken.
So I assume this is just a case of Ansibleizing this up and then deploying.
So Christian, all that needs to happen is the lint-py thing needs to be run with Python 3 and with Python 2. It needs to be run twice. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's the start.
So I don't know if this is a catch. Maybe Christian, you can help us here, but we're still relying on FreeBSD 10 for the linting, which is not where we want it to be at this stage. But is Python 3 going to be a problem on FreeBSD 10?
I've never tried. I need to take a look. I can't believe it's not, but I need to take a look.
I mean, Python 3 has certainly been out a long time, but adopted.
So is FreeBSD 10 though.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So Rod, is there any reason we rely on FreeBSD 10? Is it?
So two of us, I think, have started an effort to move us over to Ubuntu 16.04. When I got caught because there's something in our make file that is specific to that didn't work, not on FreeBSD.
Okay.
And I don't recall. I think it was John also tried to do this as well. And I'm surprised that we're still looking at it now. I'm surprised we're still on it. So obviously he got caught as well. But it would be nice to move off FreeBSD 10. So maybe. Let's not say that that's a condition here. Let's just get FreeBSD 10 sorted out and then make sure we do a switch later on.
So a quick check says on python.org says no problem. That install is supported even on the current Python.
Okay, cool. Is it just a matter of just the normal install process for that?
Yep. Package install Python 2.
Cool. Okay. Sure. Okay. I might have a look at that right now while we're talking then, unless there's something else that I have to comment on.
So in the end, for every CI run, we would run those two, like the make lint with Python 2 and 3. Is that the end result, or we would use it with 3?
Presumably 3. I would assume that what we have to do is go into the lint job and say Python in caps equals Python 3. And I presume that our make file is set up to make that okay. I'll have a look. Look, let's take that one back to GitHub. I'll work with Christian to get that happening.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. So I'll do you want me to assign that to you, Rob, or should I just leave it as it is?
Yeah, assign it to me. I'll make that my project this morning. Yep. Christian, you're in Europe, so I assume you're clocking off now, and you'll be back in 12 hours or so. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
That's great. That works for me. I'll be around when you're getting up, so we'll synchronize on GitHub when you're back up again.
Okay, very good. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Okay, shall we go back to 1154 then, which was the foundation resources to support?
Actually, I'd suggest we do the similar thing and skip to 24966 first.
Okay, yeah, I mean that
So
makes
we have
sense.
Benjamin here, and we can hopefully cover that first.
Yeah, okay, I'm happy with that.
Great. I was about to ask. I actually have to hop on a call in 15, so it works great by me.
I mean, my understanding of it so far is that while I was away, the CI job stopped working. I've read through very briefly, but not had time to read in more detail. It sounded like there was a commit that somehow broke the generation of the coverage, possibly related to the add-ons, not the tests not running or something like that. I think, Benjamin, you had a bit better look at what was going on.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, on my computer, it seems to be running fine. And I think from the thread, it sounded like it's maybe a build error happening as the tests are basically deployed on the server. And someone was commenting in the thread as well. I'd have to open up the thread, but it sounds like this happened a couple months ago and there was a similar fix, perhaps.
Yeah, a while back, I had to change the version of NYC or something like that. I don't know if it's a similar problem this time, but it's on my list of things. As soon as I get halfway caught up from being away, I'm going to take a look at to see.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that one recommendation I have, I've been kind of just itching to get the V8 coverage being used in Node so that we wouldn't even have to do that instrumentation. And it would mean that test coverage is just as fast as regular tests, or you're close to as fast as regular tests.
Right.
If we'd be open to that, the one limitation right now is it misses some lines of code in return statements because Chromium doesn't see that as doesn't see the terminal line as having been executed. But there's an open pull request on Chromium to address this, which should be landed in. So newer V8 within a month or so should address this issue.
Right. I guess I'd have two questions. So with that fix, do the numbers line up with what we've been reporting?
They should be very close. Yeah, I would. I think even today they're very close because it's the last closing parentheses in a function that doesn't get covered, and we have an open issue in Chromium to address that. So it will be. I think we'd still be in close to the same range of coverage today, like probably 89 or 90%. And then I believe once this change lands in V8, we bounce back up to 92, 93 probably.
Right. Well, because I was asking, like, once that fix is in, do we get close? Because we could look at in the CI job at least, although it might be confusing. Like in the CI job, we could potentially apply that patch before we run the tests.
Well, that's an interesting idea. We need to get it landed in Chromium first, though. So I think that's probably another week, I would guess.
Okay.
And it's Christmas, so call it 2 weeks, probably. Actually.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that change anything from the infrastructure side, or is this just a matter of working with the other folks that are working on coverage to get something landed in?
It doesn't actually change anything because we've already landed it in Node with an environment variable to enable it, and we have tested running Node's own suites against it.
We'd want to update. I think the full conclusion is we should update make coverage target in Node to use the new way of doing it. What we currently do, pulling in some pieces and patching them, it would be nice to replace that.
Yeah, and I think the added benefit too is that it's coverage is really slow as a consumer. Like it's actually it makes the code base run much slower, and it's just clunky. So I think this will be a vast improvement for getting people to rate coverage as well, improve coverage.
Yeah. So I think that's the goal. Like, as long as the numbers, doesn't look like we're reporting wrong numbers or anything like that, certainly where we want to get to. It sounds like it's pretty close. And, if there's going to be, I guess, I don't know what other people's take is, but I'm not as worried about old branches and stuff like that in terms of coverage numbers. If the fix comes into a new V8 version but isn't in 8.x, I'm not imagining that too many people run coverage on the older branches. Do people think that's a reasonable assumption?
I think it is. I would say that we are the main runners of coverage.
Yeah, I agree. When I was doing the mentorship group, we tried to get coverage running, and it was very hard for I think people find it hard to do. So this will make it easier, and probably people will start running it more.
Yeah, and I think it's most interesting on master anyway. So
yeah.
So I think I'll take a look at the job still. I on my list to see if I can get it working again. I think in parallel we could look at as if you already have a patch that we could potentially apply. It would be good to get that patch, see if we can have, I could tweak the CI job, or we could make a clone CI job actually that, basically would apply that patch and then generate the rest of the, go through the rest of the steps and see what it reports. And if it reports, similar data, then we can, we're one step closer to switching over as well.
Yeah, I shared the patch in chat.
Okay.
The frustrating or the thing slowing it down is it breaks tests in Blink, so we need to land stuff into Blink before we can get test passing. So and it also means we need to land Blink and V8. So
right.
That's why it's taking a little bit of time.
So I guess So it'd be interesting to basically check out core, apply this patch, and see if we can then generate coverage properly.
I'm happy to take on the task of having a branch that uses the new coverage and generates reports. Maybe someone else could help with checking out a different branch of V8. I've never done that before.
What do you mean by, checking out a different branch?
Well, I've never tried to build against a different V8 in Node, I don't think. I'm sure it's pretty straightforward.
But I don't think we need to, what I have in mind is you just check out Node, you apply this patch, which would change
the
files, the V8 files that we use for Node.
Gotcha.
And then we should be able to just run probably what we want to do actually is if we had a PR, this is already landed in Node Core. So we would need something that changes the make coverage target as well, right?
Yeah, I started noodling on this already. We can get it so the report output's exactly the same. So
right.
It's not too many changes.
Yeah, so I think basically if we can work on the change, the patch which basically changes the coverage target to do what we need to do with the new thing, a patch that that applies the change to Chrome, then I can help set up a CI job that mirrors what we've got for the existing CI job, we can sort of test those out and manually apply the patches until they're, we get the stuff landed in Chrome and those kinds of things.
Cool. I can probably do a test run tomorrow and even just report back to you if the numbers look good.
Okay.
Make sure they're in the right ballpark, right?
Yeah, I am away starting, I'm here till Thursday, so I don't know how far we'll get before Christmas. But I think that's the way to go, is to start getting that new branch, that new job and branch going. And then as soon as we're ready, we can kind of switch over.
Okay, I'd be excited to do that. That sounds great.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think so. That's good. That's what I wanted to better understand from you if we thought we were pretty much ready to switch over to an equivalent, and it sounds like
the only thing is I haven't run it with that branch yet, but I think it will basically get our coverage close to the same. But if I run it and it's way off, then we're not close. So
we'll figure that out.
We'll figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's you and I will take the action to work on that together and get that up and going. And maybe we can even run them in parallel for a little while if we have to, in terms of the jobs, whatever. But okay, that sounds good. Anything else we should talk about on that front?
That's it for me.
Okay, well, thanks for taking the time.
Actually, do you know what? I should have brought up the one. Sorry to interrupt. The one thing worth mentioning is the wrapper stuff. That there's a prefix in Node code that adds a few bytes and causes coverage to be off. I think we can work around that, though. It's just annoying, but we'll just need to take into account headers on files, basically.
So when you says it causes the coverage to be off, like the numbers or the line numbers reported, or what?
The line numbers reported once the reports are outputted, because it has those 60 bytes or whatever, but you can correct it by removing the 60 bytes as you calculate the report. So there are workarounds.
Okay. Yeah, if there's some tool we have to run afterwards, I think the goal would be you type make coverage and it spits out the reports just like today. And if it has to run an extra step or something, that should be doable.
Great. Sounds good.
Okay.
Cool. Are we happy with that one then?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Shall we swing back round to using Foundation resources to support build them? So issue 1154. I think this is generally one that you and I have been working on, isn't it, Michael? So I assume this is, as I said, to do with the.
So no.
No.
No, that one's a more general. We've had a number of instances where we've run into problems because sort of volunteers haven't been able to keep up with.
Right. Okay.
So I ended up opening that again to sort of re-raise the discussion of, well, how do we, the suggestion there is, and it's been used by other projects and it's been discussed before. We've never come to consensus, but I thought it was worth discussing again. Is one approach is to actually have a Foundation resource who is on call and can help with core things. Not everything, but with things that people need immediately, as opposed to can wait for when somebody has time to work on them.
Yeah. So I mean, this is quite interesting because it's quite a similar issue to what the moderation work group trying to kind of work around at the moment, where they were talking about having sort of page duty set up, I think. And it was kind of the implication of getting people involved. I imagine Rich could probably possibly fill us in a little bit more because I was a bit new when this was happening. But it's kind of the implication of we want people to almost be on call, but obviously it's a voluntary sort of process, and so it can be a little bit hard to get those people in place, I guess, to always be there to support the infra when it's most critically needed.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing for the moderation team. I think this, what we're talking about here, though, isn't necessarily 24/7 support. We're probably looking at some key hours. Yeah, I've always had mixed feelings about this. I'm sure Rod has some mixed feelings, or maybe not mixed feelings, that he can articulate because he's spoken about this specific issue eloquently in the past, if I'm not mistaken. Did I answer? I mean, I don't really know that I really have any more insight on the moderation team pager-duty coverage thing than you do, George. There wasn't really a whole lot that went on there.
Right. Okay.
I think it's similar insight though. It's hard to ask a volunteer to be on call.
Mm.
I do have feelings about this.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I've expressed it in the past.
Yeah.
This is not new, but it is mixed feelings really, because I don't want to be on the hook for for any random that wants to tell me that stuff's breaking to drop what I'm doing and go and fix stuff, because nobody's paying me to work on Node right now. I'm Mr. Limbo, so.
Right.
So that causes some mixed feelings. I'd like to see more companies like IBM step up and put resources in here. Maybe that's something we can work on.
That was a thought that came to mind, was like, as an alternate, like if we don't get the resource, if we don't ask the foundation to directly fund, is there other ways we can get companies to do something like that?
Sorry, I should back up and say IBM and Microsoft, because Microsoft does actually spend a significant amount of money on particularly Joao's time.
Yeah.
So I'd like that. I'd like companies to do that. But the other thing that we cannot take off the table here is maybe I said this in the issue, that I think that part of the problem is that we took the opportunity of resources to complicate and expand what we're doing. And we're now in a point where we're paying for that complication, for the expansion of our, we've got a really sophisticated CI infrastructure and we're paying for it. And so if we are genuinely feeling the pain of that, one solution is to say, well, we complicated, let's decomplicate. Let's pull back a bit. Let's pull back to a manageable level and find what that is. Instead of saying, well, this is just how it is. And everyone's got this, golden goose and it's just beautiful and everyone loves it. And so we have to maintain it. But
so what would we cut?
Well, I mean, look, we've got like 150 hosts in CI. We could certainly trim that. We could be more aggressive with the way we support things. I've been trying to do that a bit, actually, on the build repo. I've been putting in issues for removing older versions of Linux quicker. And we could just be more aggressive with that stuff and just trim down our infrastructure. But I think if we were intentional about it, we could probably find some really good ways to do it more. I've just been chipping away at it.
Right. I just wonder if that would, like, we so for example, on the ARM machines, that those seem to be ones that we have issues with routinely, or I don't know, maybe I just hear about them more, but like, is there something, what would we do on that front that would help?
So right now, the big pain point, like this second, and I would say the last week or two, ARM has been great. Windows have been great. Those two are the traditional pain points. Right now, the big pain point is AIX, and it's mostly that it's bottlenecked.
Yeah. So
as far as ARM goes, I assume you're mostly talking about Raspberry Pi and not like the other ARM.
Yeah, that's where I've found it.
And if that's the case, there's really nothing a commercial vendor is going to do for us, or the foundation or anything. I mean, it's really like, the thing we can do if Raspberry Pi is really a pain point is just get rid of Pi 1s or don't do Raspberry
Right.
Pi.
That was my question. What would we trim, right?
Well, so the history with the Raspberry Pis is we put them in place because Node was at just beginning to support ARM, particularly ARM v6 and 7. That for the life of Node 0.10, there was this hacked support that people in the ecosystem would do, and we decided with IOJS it was time to let's make this official. And so we did this cluster thing. It works really well now, and we rarely have issues that are ARM v6 and 7 specific.
Yeah,
we could just accept that and say, well, it's going really well. We don't need to be so comprehensive in our testing, and we either start trimming resources, or we could move to do some emulation, or I don't know what. Or maybe at some point soon, it's time to say ARM v6 support is gone. I mean, that's reasonable. I think v8's on the verge of doing that probably. So we start actually being aggressive there as well. But like, I think this is part of a bigger discussion about rationalization of resources. Let's actually admit to ourselves that it is a cost, this complex architecture we have, and we did it because we could, not because we needed it. And maybe we don't need it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a mindset to which there may be some resistance, but I think it's really worth looking more closely at.
Well, we can do it smart. We don't have to do it so it's painful. We could even do it so people don't even notice. Like we could cut the number of Linux machines that we have to, Linux distros that we, and versions that we test in half, and people probably wouldn't notice.
Yeah, and I guess that would help if our main issue is that we have lots of machines, and then just because of numbers, we end up with more problems, right?
That's a good point. That it would be good also to have some way of figuring out what the real costs are. Where's the pain that we're experiencing? And I can't tell you that off the top of my head. I guess we could all probably take a guess at it from our experience. My hunch is that it's very tightly correlated with the number of machines. The more machines we have, the more probability of one of them having trouble. Like that, CentOS 7 ARM64 machine, Rich, that was having trouble. That was just a matter of cleaning it up. Fewer machines means fewer of those kinds of problems. That's my guess, but perhaps there's something more structural to the way we're doing things. Perhaps it's to do with the way we're utilizing Jenkins. Maybe we need to have some internal strategic initiative looking at and measuring pain points. Maybe we need to do better logging of pain. We've looked at that. We've looked at that a lot in the past. How do we record these things? We're still not doing a very good job of it.
But
Well,
I mean, I guess
it's easy to like put down on a piece of paper like this is a pain point. What's difficult is quantifying it. Like how much pain, what is the cost of say the aforementioned AIX issues of the last few days / week versus the Raspberry Pi pain of yesteryear. I don't know that I have an answer for that. It's all very subjective, and I'm not even sure how I'd begin to quantify it. Which doesn't mean we shouldn't think about it and try to do it anyway. I'm just saying, I don't even know how to do that. I guess the two things we can quantify is how much a particular platform delays an individual CI run,
right?
Like by either taking by being a bottleneck and taking forever, or by causing reruns to but for this platform this would, but then you run into an issue of, well, is it really that platform, or is the test buggy and the platform's actually doing the right thing by forcing us to fix our tests or our code? So it all gets pretty fuzzy pretty fast. But it'll be difficult to collect that kind of information, but it could be collected in a pretty narrow way, just 1 day's worth of data could probably be pretty manageable. Question is, how much use would that be? Because that's the other thing, is that AIX used to be great, and so it's going to depend when you take the snapshot.
Yeah, and
tomorrow it might just need one setting change. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we want to say what's our problem this week or last week. It's what continually causes us grief. And if it's, so if it's that there's always some random machine and it's a different platform, different whatever, then looking at how we reduce numbers helps. I mean, in terms of the performance, George is looking at adding an AIX machine to try and help the throughput side of things, which kind of works in the other direction. But
hey, Rod, do you think this is also a candidate for a strategic initiative, Rod and Michael?
I would agree if we have somebody who's willing to lead it.
Yeah.
Right. That's.
I might be willing to take it on in January. I'm kind of trying to hang back for December. Yeah. I might be willing to take it on for January, especially if there's someone else willing to also do it. And if like it's only going to be if it's acceptable that like we're just going to measure for like 45 days or something, and then from there we can try to figure out how to automate measurement. I kind of don't think. I think the devil's really going to be the details. I think automating it's going to be a really difficult because, you know, a lot depends on whether a particular failure is because the platform is, yeah, you know, actually, I bet Joyi, yeah, I bet I could work with Joyi or at least use some of the tooling she wrote to kind of make this manageable. Because like it'll still require human intervention, but a human just needs to look and say, you know, this was an infra issue. This was like a thing that needed to be rebooted, and nobody rebooted it for 7 hours. So for 7 hours, we had failing tests. You know, that's a pain point, as opposed to this was somebody you know, landed a bad commit and then it was broken for 7 hours because somebody, you know, because that's how long it took us to figure that out and revert. That's the CI doing its job, you know. That is it, like no.
Right, exactly. Like it's because I think our struggle, or where, you know, the reason I opened this issue in the first place is it's the not responding, like not being able to respond on call quickly enough to things. Like you said, like a machine just needs to be kicked and it takes 7 hours. Those are the kind of things that you'd help potentially by having somebody who's paid to be on call, right? Or
we could also pursue that route of that. It sounds like the moderation working group's doing that. There are enough of us scattered around the globe that if we just had a better mechanism for pinging the right person, we may actually fix a lot of the pain. You know, there's no, because
it depends how often it is.
Yeah, that's true.
Right, like if I can't take another 10 pings a day, but if it's one every couple days, then yeah.
Well, there's a bit of an elephant in the room that, like, you know, I mean, Michael, you're just overcommitted. I mean, like in terms of
right.
I mean, build is a really you know, under-resourced thing, and there is some. I mean, this goes back to that issue 1337 that we were talking about before. That, you know, there is some element of this is a loaded term, and I apologize, but there's some element of gatekeeping. That, like, you know, so some people are allowed and I think it's good that we want to break that down a little bit and like allow a path for people who, you know, aren't otherwise, like, you know, already, because by the time you've earned the trust in 14 other places within the project, you know, you're already overcommitted. Like none of us. You know, I mean, I don't know how George's, you know, is in terms of being spread too thin, but none of the others of us on this call right now are the right people. I don't think. I don't know. Maybe Rod has more time now than he used to, but I mean, like, yeah. And I think, okay, I'm getting off track. Someone bring this back to where it belongs.
I'm actually not sure that you're right with that, because we do have members, we do have people, but we don't have a uniform way of getting the attention of people. So some people know that you can go on IRC and you can get certain people. Some people know that if you go on GitHub, then there'll be more responsive people. We have a channel problem, I think, but we also have a problem of I think we do have a lot of people that could solve a lot of these problems, but they're not. I don't know if they don't feel like they can step up and be frontline, or they wait for someone else to do it. But I think we've got plenty of people with access. Like the test key will solve a lot of things.
Yeah,
we've got a lot of people who can access Jenkins CI, the test CI as admins. There's a bunch of people that can do this stuff. I just don't think we have a uniform way of notifying or getting attention or even prioritizing. Because like I'm on IRC and I get those notifications on my phone, but often it's I see notifications and I'm out and I'm like, I don't even know whether that's important or not. You know, that kind of problem.
Yeah, actually, so that's a really good point. We don't have a single uniform way, like the issue tracker in the build repo is, I mean, like I never like using it because I feel like it's, like anything I put in there is probably going to be ignored or at least for several days before somebody looks at it. And that's like and IRC is hit or miss, and then there is no other real option. Like that's basically it. And then another issue I think that's worth mentioning is that is just a sort of like a training issue. Like, I've done systems administration. I think I know how to handle stuff, but like I don't know how to I don't know how to do half the stuff that needs to be done, and I don't know who to ask necessarily. And I don't know that anybody has the bandwidth to train, and so there's a lot of also siloing there where it's like, if you want Windows stuff, hope Joao is around,
Yeah,
and
there is.
Yeah, well, we're all like that though.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, and then there's and then some of the IBM stuff is sufficiently not widely understood that you really want an IBM person to look at like thank goodness Girish is looking at those crashes that we see on all platforms, but we see especially on AIX probably just because of a particular peculiarity of the way the timing of certain things on it. It's probably AIX is probably behaving exactly appropriately, but it just happens to be behaving in a way that happens to trigger a bug that we haven't found yet. But anyway, like if we like I don't think anybody like Gabriel Schulhoff is trying to like help out with that and everything. And other than that, I don't think there's anybody outside of IBM who could possibly really be effective.
There's been a few people there's been enough people who've logged in and actually been successful, but I understand, I won't take away from the fact that it's different enough from regular Linux that it's a challenge.
Yeah, and it's good that we're testing on it. Like that's not a bad thing, but yeah, I mean, and then the last thing is that we keep having these initiatives to like improve our documentation, get it more complete, make it more organized, and they kind of keep stalling out. And I think people kind of burn out on doing that stuff. And again, I don't know what the solution is to these things, but I think all these problems are connected and they all kind of just reinforce each other. And it might be good to like list them all out and attack them all somehow.
I just wouldn't mind going a bit back to something Rod mentioned earlier, because I thought about that before the meeting, seeing that this was on the agenda as well. Is like, I mean, do we think it would make any sense to go back to the foundation and ask the member companies to, contribute more resources to build? Like basically call it out as an issue and to say, we need their help to get more people participating, but like maybe if we were going to ask for rotation, we would ask for companies to commit to that rotation as opposed to individuals, right? Or I don't know, I'm just brainstorming.
I think that's probably a good thing to do. I think Google could certainly contribute more, although in the past, their contribution has been of the form, oh, well, if you do it this new fancy way that we want to do it, then we can help you. But that's probably something we could do, because and we could actually, in doing that, we could make a statement about how IBM and Microsoft are the ones ponying up a lot of the resources right now, and
I'm just thinking, like, from my
Google's
perspective,
contributing nothing on this end. They're not even contributing hardware resources. So it'd be nice to nudge them into doing something.
Right. And I'm even just thinking a little bit like it would firm up, if it's a corporate commitment instead of individuals, it sort of firms up as well the motivation. Like it's not you as an individual saying, hey, this is the right thing to do, can I contribute? It's different if the company is saying, hey, we've committed people to contribute, can you do this for us?
And it certainly makes it easier for us in terms of that access question if we've got corporate contributors.
Right.
And then the other part of that, in delivering that message to the foundation, is we could say, if you would like to sponsor or hire somebody, we could possibly even push someone your way, because I think we've probably got people around the edges who are possibly interested in jobs doing this kind of stuff.
Right.
And if we get them in contractual relationships with a large company, then that would even suit us. So
Right. It's kind of like, I guess, if we're not comfortable with the foundation directly paying, that's a way to get it indirectly.
I do
Sorry, George?
that I think it would have been a couple of now, and we sat down and we were really going through what a lot of these common cleanup tasks were. And a lot of these are very simple commands. I mean, the libuv ZOS job that I cleaned up the other day, I must have done that 7, 8, 9 times every time I run the same command. And this really goes with that whole kind of Ansible Tower concept of, if we could create something that was safe for collaborators to run, that would clean up a machine, and yeah, exactly, click a button and it restarts the Jenkins agent, it cleans the workspace and does a few other funky things that we know help on that particular platform, then I think we could eradicate a huge amount of this work. And it's often that kind of, well, it needs a Jenkins restart, but I've got 7 or 8 other things on my backlog to do. And
it's not even collaborating. This would work for us on the build team.
Yeah, it would be easier to do that. It's especially, if it's on a platform we're not comfortable with.
Yeah. You think about Windows. If we had tasks for Windows to do cleanup that none of us are comfortable doing, I think of the IBM platforms. Like I'm afraid of touching AIX. I just have no idea. So if I had a button I could click to say do the things that IBM people would do, so I'd click it. Rich could do the same on any of the platforms where he's not comfortable doing sysadmin stuff.
I think that would be great. We just need to figure out if we can get enough time of people to do that, right?
I think this is where we should be prioritizing resources though. If we can, rather than putting aside people time and saying, I want to have X number of people working around the clock to ensure that AIX and Windows work, if we can actually put that resource in the direction of saying, what is it that those IBM people are time, I'm sure there's going to be issues where we do need those, low-level C++ experts on a particular platform to have a look. But a lot of the machine issues we could really, really easily clear up without really needing particular expertise, as long as we've got a playbook that can actually handle that, in my opinion.
So I agree. It's just we haven't managed to do it yet, right? So
I think there was a starting playbook that someone wrote, if I remember rightly.
This has definitely been an ongoing effort that someone started that kind of stalled out.
Yeah, I mean, I know, George, you gave us a presentation, you showed us Ansible Tower. I just want us to not say, hey, that's a great idea, but then 6 months from now still not have quite managed to do it, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if
I'm still thinking that even if we can do that, which I think is some area we should focus on, I still wonder if somehow trying to go back to the foundation and get more sort of, say as the foundation members, we need more support for the build infrastructure from those members makes sense.
Yeah.
If they say yes, then and one of the things they can help do is to build those scripts that makes everything easier. That's a great thing too, right?
Yeah. I mean, either way we're winning, right? We probably need more of that expertise there, but if we can also automate some of that out, then we're making everyone's life easy. And as I say, what I really like about that is that we could really open that up to collaborators or anybody to come in and click a button and very safely, clean a machine without even actually needing SSH access, I guess.
Yeah. Well, no, I totally agree. Yeah. It's just a matter of us freeing enough time to make it happen.
In the same category of Ansible Tower was what is the Keybox?
Keybox,
yep.
Which goes back to the first issue.
Yeah. I think those two things would be great to have in place.
Yeah.
I'm just getting back to we've struggled to make progress on them. So
because we're chasing our tails on our complex infrastructure that we have, it's a rod for our own backs. So I think the question of strategic initiative to look at this strategically Like, let's be rational about what resources we have, what we want, what resources we want to be able to spend on these stuff, and our ability to take on volunteers, all that sort of stuff. I think would be a good thing to do. I'm personally, I'm interested in that because I don't want to be. I don't think I'm going to be, very useful into the new year on this. This stuff's a hobby for me, and I'm very unlikely to be paid to do this next year wherever I land. So I would like to still be able to treat it as a hobby and not something where I have to, like, I spent a bunch of hours yesterday cleaning stuff up, catching up. And that's not a good sign that volunteers need to spend hours of their time doing it. So maybe, Rich, you and I should kick off something in the new year.
I think there's certainly areas that we need to prioritize, I guess. I mean, obviously, as Rich has pointed out, AAX is being problematic at the moment. Luckily,
there's urgency versus importance, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly the AAX side of things, we should hopefully in the new year be in a much sort of happier position with AAX. It's kind of a common.
See we've caught up today. There was a machine that was down for like 8 hours yesterday, so that didn't help.
One of the machines, right? So one of the main issues is obviously that we've only got the 2 AAX machines. So when one goes down, the backlog piles on pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The other thing is that the current host of those machines is pretty old. And it's not particularly well configured, so obviously those machines are inherently slow. Yeah, I mean it's just not ideal. Hopefully,
it doesn't take much for one of the AIX machines to become unavailable because we run Canary in the Gold Mine on AIX, and we often do and then there are other reasons that I can get into, but and then I think. I'm wondering if like Ccache might have been. I keep meaning to look at this. If like Ccache isn't running on it or something, because like even like the last build took over an hour, which seems like it's the longest of everything, and that just seems.
The main flaw on the AX machines was that the way that they're configured, they have incredibly poor disk I/O. If you actually try and benchmark them, they're horrendously poor.
Right, but it's too bad we don't have enough build history, because it sounds like it's something recent that's.
Well, we
only have 2 minutes left, and we probably don't need to troubleshoot the specific.
Yeah, no, I mean George and I have the action to fix that problem. We're adding.
We are working on it.
Adding a machine. One of the, a pair. So we should have 3 hopefully within the not too distant future. And then we have a massive machine, which if we can just get it there, will give us the flexibility to add lots and lots of machines. So I think we've got the action to do what we can on that front.
Yeah.
It sounds like Rod, you're going to take the initiative to start up a strategic initiative in the new year.
I think we have to. I think we have to do something, because yeah.
In terms of going to the foundation to, I don't know, see if we can. Do you think that makes sense? Like, do we, go back to them and say we'd like to ask for more direct help on this front from the foundation members? Is that worth a shot as well, as part of that, or separately? I don't know.
So as a first thing to do, it might just be to have Miles as the TSC director or someone else just kind of bring it to the board that, look, build is really understaffed, and here are the things, or rather under-resourced, and here are things that could help people, machines, etc., and see what the member companies actually want to offer, and because maybe the big thing is just that they're not aware, or maybe they are and I'm being naive.
I think it would be good to make an ask. I mean, just my thought is to say that we'd like X, because otherwise, it's sort of like, okay, we recognize the problem. What do you want us to do? What I don't think what we don't want is like somebody to say, oh yeah, well, we've got all this different technology. Why don't we switch over to that? I don't think that helps us in the short term, at least.
How about I draft? Which issue number is this? Let's go back to the issue number.
1154.
Let me draft a little note in there that we might send up to via Miles. Just saying what we have, that we are in the process of looking at rationalizing our resources according to our abilities to support those resources, and say these are the companies that are currently contributing heavily in people and machine time. And if there are foundation companies that basically we are probably going to trim our resources unless we trim our scope unless we get more resources to maintain current scope. Maybe we put it that way. And we're going to be looking at that in the new year. If there are companies on the member companies that wish to contribute, then we'd like to hear from them now so we can take that into account. Something like that.
Yeah. I'm just thinking like, I would almost prefer a stronger ask than if you wish to contribute, or it's more like,
okay.
If we could craft it anyway. Why don't you put something together? I can make some comments there, and we can refine.
I think a stronger ask actually needs us to be clear about what we even need. So that's why I'm saying if we want to do an ask now, it has to be, we're going to be looking at this. You have to let us know. If we want to do a stronger ask, let's wait until we've done actually this accounting and see what we're doing, what we need, and then we can go back to them and say, look, this is the state of play. We're going to do this, this, and this, unless you want to contribute in these ways. So a stronger ask requires stronger data, I think. I'm happy to wait if you want to. Let's wait until the new year till we start dealing with this. We're managing right now, but
yeah. I mean, I figure everything is the new year now. Right, I'm only working for 2 more days, so. But yeah, so yeah, let's put something together, and then we can figure out based on what we get started when. I wouldn't want to wait 3 months necessarily to make an ask, but once we sort of get started, we can figure out timelines and decide what to do from there.
Yeah, makes sense. Are we all happy with that then?
Yeah.
Cool. I think that brings us to Q&A/other. I don't know if there was anything else, or equally if there's anything that either of you want to discuss off YouTube. No? Okay. I'll just check the YouTube channels, see if there's anybody that has asked us anything. Looks like I think we are there then, unless either of you had any other business at all. Nope. Ideal. Okay then.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Cool. All right then. Thanks for joining.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.